Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast. This is Dr. Claire Moon of Aligning Light Astrology, and we're going to be talking about the first couple weeks of July 2024. So if you are joining us, there is the chat. Feel free to communicate in there, communicate with each other, communicate with me. There is a bit of a 20-second delay, so bear with me there. Also, I'm going to ask, I don't know if you can hear it, if people are here, but I am in a tornado warning and it is coming down. Like it's really raining. So I don't know if you can hear that. I hope you can't. It was just very loud. So let me know if it's distracting. And then let me just get my notes up and we will get going here. I don't think I have any announcements. Everything is on schedule. I am giving readings. I'm booking. I'm just starting to book into the next month. Like I'm really not booked that far out. However, if you do want an astrology reading, birth chart reading, forecasting reading, tutoring, I do tutoring and mentoring for Hellenistic astrology as well. I am going on vacation at the end of June for like 5 or 6 days. And then I'm also going to be gone for like the last week of July. Those are my two big chunks that I'll be gone this summer. So get in while the getting's good. I just sent out a newsletter today. I need to be better about talking about the newsletter. I send out a newsletter every month. And if you want to sign up for that, you can do that at my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. But I send out discounts. And the discount for this month, what is it? It's solstice, Solstice, solstice. And that's for 15% off of any birth chart reading. So if you need a little nudge, if that makes it a little easier, there you have it. And that's why you sign up for the newsletter, because then I pipe those into your inbox once a month. I did write a little blurb, which is really going to be the focus of today, which is a full moon. We got 2 full moons in Capricorn over the next month. We're going to talk about one of them a little bit today. I mean, we just had it. We're going to have a Cancer new moon sandwiched in between the Capricorn full moons. And Saturn is stationing retrograde. So Saturn, Capricorn ends up being a bigger note this month than we might otherwise expect. I'm getting into it already, though. Hold up. Do I have anything else? No, I think that's it. Let me get the circle chart going and let me see if anyone's here. Is anyone here? Yeah, good. It's all working. We got people who are also in drizzly places like Vancouver and Tasmania, Australia. Hello. Happy tomorrow. Hello. Yeah, I thought about going to the basement. I'm supposed to be in it, but like I'm totally a storm dad. I'm one of those dads that goes out on the deck. Like I really shouldn't do that, but um no. Hello, Elliot. Welcome. Yes, welcome. Oh my gosh. All right. So if you have questions, if I'm trying to, mm, my biggest problem with these forecasts, I'm going to be honest with you, is project creep because I want to talk about every single flippin' day that the moon exists. And I need to start whittling it down. So if I skip over transits that you wanted to discuss, please just let me know in the chat and we can always circle back. Um, Hello, welcome. All right. So I guess before we jump into the future and before I do my little datey dates, I did want to do a little reflection. So looking at the last couple weeks, we've had a lot of activity between Mars and Pluto. And so, last time we were talking a bit about intensity, high impact situations, a lot of kind of like move mountains levels of energy, like the ability to just do a ton of effort and work. Mars effort just being really supercharged by that Pluto square. And I mean, it can be really gnarly. Like I think if we Google Mars Pluto square, You get some pretty difficult delineations, and in some cases there can be violence. But what I find, I've been observing them because I'm always watching them, and a lot of times it's like just getting a burst of energy through into something. So what I saw in my little anecdote, and this was back, I mean, really building up on like June 6th, 7th, 8th. And it was right where Mars was ingressing into Taurus. And then it was extra pumped up here. I'm not sure what's more pumped up, Mars and Aries in a sextile to Pluto, kind of coming into this degree-based square, or Mars and Pluto in a square base or a sign-based square, but very, very powerful. And my little anecdote, I wish I could show you a picture, but I didn't get my shit together. But my dad, he just turned 73. Love him so much. He's got a big beard. He used to look like Jesus, and now he's like white Jesus, and now he's made a transition to looking like Gandalf, like a wizard. His very long hair, long beard. If that gives you any idea why I am like why I am. But he cut like a whole cord of wood. It was so much wood because we had actually, and now I wish I would have looked back, but it was like a year ago when we had Mars and Jupiter, or no, maybe it was just Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. But a storm came through in my fourth house of Taurus in my home and took out a bunch of trees, a bunch of like, we lost, I think, 3 or 4 trees that were probably 100 years, 100+ years old. Well, probably like 2 of them were 100+ years old. 2 of them, the other 2 were like under 60, but still like decades old trees. So that was kind of a bummer. And so it all had to be cut up and, dealt with. And on this Mars Pluto square, my dad dealt with all that dead tree stuff that needed chopping up for firewood because they burn firewood. So in the winter, so he just put in like a ton of effort and nothing bad happened, no injuries. Everyone's all right. And it was, yeah, it was really cool. So, and actually he had a wood splitter, which he usually doesn't have, but he borrowed the neighbor's wood splitter, which is like, if you don't know what that is, it is a big, like trailer sized thing that you put on the back of you could like pull it on the back of a truck, but it's got a big hydraulic shaft that has a wedge on the end. And you put the piece of wood and then the hydraulic shaft just like splits it in half for you. So you don't actually have to do all of the chopping. And I mean, it's still like very physical labor. You have to feed wood into this thing for hours and hours or however long it takes. But it's like very powerful. So if I could pick like a material version of Mars Pluto square, a really powerful hydraulic shaft that's splitting wood, or a hydraulic thingy, whatever they're called. Uh, Very cool. So yeah, I don't know if anyone had any things. There were, I mean, to be real, when this was leading up, I also witnessed some difficult things, like a friend of mine with some difficult medical things that were very intense. So that was a not fun kind of Mars coming into the square. But yeah, intense things, but sometimes they're really constructive. So I wanted to give that as an example of things that don't suck. Let me see. Oh, well, there's someone from, oh yeah, that's right, Louisiana. I remember that. I'm starting to remember stuff. All right. So that was one anecdote. The other thing I wanted to consider is that now we have all of the planets in Cancer that have gotten through this square with Neptune. So that was another thing that we've been dealing with over the last several weeks is, pretty much most of June. First it was Venus, Mercury, and then it was the sun moving in this square with Neptune. And that was causing a lot of potential confusion, fogginess, uncertainty, at worst, deceit or lying or trickery or shenanigans of some kind. But yeah, I pretty much wrote a note in my calendar for that week to over communicate. I just put in big letters over like several days, like over communicate with everybody. And I did, and it was every single time it was good and necessary that I did. So I don't know if anyone had any things like the first 2 weeks of June, if there were any like higher than normal amounts of miscommunications, uncertainty, fogginess, um, potentially deceit or or, it's not always, most of the time when there's misunderstanding, it's innocent, but there can be misunderstanding. So yeah, if there was any of that the first couple weeks of June, now as June is wrapping up, we are seeing these planets past that square. So, and we're into water, which is also like a place of less overthinking. And when all these planets were in Gemini, we were also, I mean, it was so rude. It was incredibly rude because in Gemini, Sun, Venus, Mercury, we're trying to sort out a bunch of information, fact, details, having a really hard time kind of figuring out and sorting out which things to prioritize or maybe conclusions. Neptune making it much more difficult to do that. So trying to do the things that we especially needed to do. Now we had Mercury there. Mercury was awesome. Thank God. I mean, so I'm sure we all navigated it just fine. That being said, now we don't have that square Neptune influence. So, even though Mercury is not necessarily in their domicile, this still might reflect an increase in clarity over the next week or two here. So as we are here June 22nd, and as we enter into July, Mercury is also pulling away from the sun, and they are going to be becoming visible in the evening sky after the sun sets. So Mercury, communication, logistics, logic, getting news and information, commerce, buying and selling, music, all of those topics, speaking, listening, might become more effective with more clarity, more prominence as we go into July. So that's looking pretty good. Mercury is improving in condition in a lot of ways, just as it moves away from the sun. And another fun thing, and I mentioned this last time, but I'm just going to repeat it again. Venus right now is in their own decan and very quickly will be in their own bound. And Mercury, they're in their own decan or their own decan, and also very quickly will be in their own bound. And for a while, we're actually going to have it where Venus and Mercury are both in their own bound, which again, I know we usually don't look at Mercury in like a water sign and think, that that's going to be like the most effective place for Mercury. But here it really is. So I was looking at that and I was like, yeah, our communication should be online for being as close to the sun as Mercury is. They're going to be doing a lot better than I think that we might expect otherwise. So again, just I guess in English over the next 2 weeks. So as June turns into July, as Mercury becomes visible, gets further away from the sun, I expect that things like communication, buying and selling, music, anything mercurial, those things, getting news, information, all those things should become more clear, more effective, more apparent. Yay. Okay, neat. And then, yeah, I was kind of bummed I didn't see the full moon. So last piece of old business. We just had this really cool first of the two Capricorn full moons. And it was really low in the sky, I believe, but we had cloud cover here, so I didn't see any of it. Let me show you what I am talking about. So if we look here, here, we can see the moon, and we can see the declination, which, okay, so if we are like, let's say here's a horizon, here's a person. If the path of the ecliptic moves above that person in the sky, right? This is where the path of the planets is. If I'm literally looking at the sky and I'm looking at the ecliptic, which is the path that the sun takes, and all the planets basically follow through that. But the moon and a lot of the other planets kind of can move up and down. I believe the sun does as well and moves around a little bit up and down along this. And 28 degrees is very, very, anything after about 22, 23. I forget what the exact thing is. I think it's 23. If anyone in the chat knows what is considered out of bounds, I forget what the exact cutoff is, but it's like this planet, in this case, the moon, is really far away from that path that everything is usually on. And so, being so far away and southern declination, I was expecting to see the moon really close to the horizon, but then alas, there was cloud cover and I didn't get to see it. But um yeah, it was a special Capricorn full moon, partly because of this declination, which I actually didn't notice when I talked about it the last time. So I wanted to mention it now. And so if it did look like, I don't know if anyone can confirm if it looked lower than normal. And then we'll get into the dates of interest. Thank you, Reverend Kai. Oh, such a good astrologer in the chat. Do you do readings? I should have asked you that like a year ago. I guess I always just assumed you did or something, or I don't know. But 23 degrees, 27 arc minutes. After that, like more southern or northerly declination, that's considered out of bounds. And symbolically, a planet that's out of bounds, what I've been picking up is just that planet's expressing itself kind of however the heck it wants without being limited by maybe the social mores of the time, or being just kind of an extreme version of itself, maybe. So I haven't really noticed anything too different, but I'm an N of whatever. Let's see. That's so, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I should have been saying this the whole time. Yeah, put your website in the chat. Reverend Kai has been doing readings for like 15 years. Now I feel like my teacher is watching me or something. No, we're okay. Uh, Hello, Clarkson. Hello, peace to the universal family. Yeah. Oh, don't be scared that it's Cancer season. Why are you scared? Is it because you're Leo rising? Is this your is this your 12th house time? Hello from Cincinnati. Welcome, friends. All right. Yeah, let's see. So the dates of interest, the datey dates, we've got the second of well, the 2nd of July, Mercury entering Leo. Also on the 2nd of July, Neptune stationing retrograde. On the 5th of July, we have a Cancer new moon. And on the 11th of July, Venus enters Leo. And then we will wrap up things around September 15th or so. I will see you again on the 12th to talk about the last part of the month, which includes on the 20th, Mars entering Gemini. On the 21st, the second Capricorn full moon at the very last degree. And on the 22nd, Sun entering Leo. That'll be fun. Meow, meow. And then on the 25th, Mercury entering Virgo. So those are the big events of the month. And yes, sorry, I'm reading in the chat. Reverend Kai says, all astrologers are working together as fellow students. It's true. It's a lifelong sport. It's a very lifelong sport. And like, I'm really thankful that I had at least one other in an earlier life. I was forced to learn a big chunk of information in the form of pharmacy. And so I understand what it's like to have to learn like a big, deep, endless thing that really, truly never ends. You could learn about physiology and pathophysiology forever. So it's kind of, now I don't feel so intimidated or bothered by, it's kind of like the more you learn, the more you don't know, basically. Feeling like you know less and less and less and less as time goes on, just because you just see more the longer you're around. Like I was just reading in that CAELi Review Journal article, the days of the moon technique, looking at like the third, no, what is it? Yeah, the third, the seventh, and the 40th day after birth and the symbolism around that and prior to birth. Absolutely fascinating. Super awesome technique. Had no idea about it. Been here since 2016. What is that? Yeah, I think I'm in my eighth year, 7th year, 8th year, something like that. Yeah, it's like I feel like it's something new, which is beautiful. I love it. I'm not saying this as a complaint. I'm saying this with gratitude and excitement and enthusiasm that it's like every other week. I'm learning another thing. I'm like, dang it. I don't have enough hours in the day. Um, I digress. let's get into the datey dates. So on the 1st of July, get rid of the overwhelming wheel. So yeah, I mean, we're getting our first little taste here, I think. July 1st and 2nd, the moon is going to be in Taurus with Mars and Uranus. And we're really watching this month. This is one of kind of the big overall points of the month is this Mars-Uranus conjunction that really peaks mid-July. I'm going to give us some ways of reading this that are going to be really neutral, but we'll get to that more at the end. But July 1st and 2nd, I think well, I should just talk about it right now. We might be able to feel into this. So one neutral way of looking at what Mars is going to be doing with Uranus, because we think of Uranus as sudden things, unexpected things, disruptions, but also experimentation, trying new things. But there can be that sudden, unexpected nature, whether or not it's like a happy accident or it's just a thing that you have to deal with and be flexible around. Uranus is just a break in the norm, or a break in the, I want to say norm, but I'll just say a break in whatever is going on at any given moment. Uranus will interrupt whatever that is. It will do a different thing. It will be a different version of it completely. But it does create some kind of disruption. Even if it's like kind of an expected one. Like I've noticed that too. I think you can sometimes do the whole expect the unexpected insofar as it's like, so for instance, if I know that this influence is coming into my life about mid-July and I'm going to have to maybe change my routines or change my schedule in order to meet that new thing that's coming in July, in mid-July, then that, yeah, I'm foreseeing that there will be disruptions because of this thing that I know is coming. And that might be totally just normal and fine. Maybe you're moving, that would be an example. Maybe your partner's moving in with you or something, and it's like, oh yeah, now we're gonna have to rearrange figure out whose dishes we're putting in the kitchen. So that could be what's going on. Another neutral way of looking at it is like look at what Mars rules. So for instance, this person's 12th house, we'll pick on that. Ruled by Mars. So this person's 12th house stuff is signified by Mars. So just look at the house topics of like the Mars ruled places and see how those house topics are being brought in. So also the 5th house, that's ruled by Mars. So let's say this is 5th house of sex or fun or rest. Maybe Mars is sudden, unexpected rest or sudden, unexpected sex or sudden, unexpected fun. Haha. Because Mars is simply the significator of 5th house topics if you're a Sagittarius rising. It is also the 12th house. So let's say that's like a meditation practice, maybe a very active like Qigong practice. Maybe as Mars meets Uranus, that Qigong practice is interrupted because they learn some other type of meditation to do. So it can just be like, how are these life topics having interruptions, having disruptions? And maybe that's because of changes that are just happening. Uranus is change. Before we had Uranus being like this kind of sudden wild energy, it was usually Mars. So when we have both of them together, I think, just be flexible, be with whatever wants to change, let the change kind of happen. And then we can know, and maybe make the moon in Taurus when they're here, especially make them feel a little bit more comfortable and say, just because this change is happening doesn't mean it has to be a permanent change. A lot of changes we can kind of test out for a little bit, decide whether or not we like it. And then if it doesn't work, we can go back. We still had an interruption, but maybe we decide against that change. So, yeah, if we can be, the more open we can be with change and the more flexible, I think the month of July, very, very much to our advantage. And then in Taurus, always packing snacks. It's kind of like if we get interrupted in traffic or something, it'd be nice to have a snack. So I guess for whatever that's worth. The other big things that are happening. So on the 2nd, we've got Mercury entering into Leo, but even on the 1st, we have them applying to this opposition with Pluto. I don't know if I just misspoke. Mercury going into Leo, but before they do that, Mercury opposes Pluto. Venus is also going to do this. We're not going to talk about it much today, but also the sun will eventually do this. So all of these planets, just like they all had to do that square with Neptune, now they're all going to be doing this opposition with Pluto. And so Pluto is power, intensity, high impact. And I find that sometimes when planets are transiting Pluto and getting that energy of Pluto into them, influencing them, there's things going on in my life where they do feel pressurized. They do feel really important to me. And so, yeah, it's like kind of intense or like really impactful to me if I do good or bad at something. And so, yeah, like I can feel that Plutonian kind of tension and clinging and like wanting a certain outcome to happen. And, like just the pressure that we can put on ourselves. Also, other people putting pressure on us if we're real. There can be external pressures, internal pressures, very real ones like having to like pay bills and stuff, the pressure of that. Oh, dang, yeah, this is I bet the tax checks are going to come out of my bank account when that happens. I'm like, oh yeah, Mercury rules my second or my eighth house of taxes. Crap. Yeah. It's a quarterly thing. I pay my taxes quarterly and it's based on like a prediction from the year before. Uh, and yeah, so every quarter, it's like, here we go again. But yeah, big powerful stuff. It can be the classic power dynamic stuff, power struggles, um, just dealing with power differentials, which there's a whole spectrum of power differentials, ones that are consensual, ones that are not, ones that are kind of natural in terms of like a lawyer and their client. There's a power dynamic there, a judge and a defendant. There's a power dynamic there, right? Just based on the roles and the situations and the circumstances. So sometimes that's what Pluto signifies. Other times, kind of the worst part of the spectrum would be like corrupt things, distortions, really deeply ingrained, just obstacles that are the kind of the consequence of our power imbalances now, like the Plutonian challenges are like, I imagine just like the increasing cost of living expenses in Madison and places like Madison, Colorado, with all the rich people that are moving there from California. No offense if that's you. I understand life takes us places. But it makes everything really like all the rents are going up around here, and that is like such a, like, what the hell am I going to do about that? You know? I can say, I just got a little postcard that said they're going to build a low income housing complex nearby, which is great because we need more housing. And so I can go to that meeting and say, yeah, do that. I support that. Like, I feel like that's all I can do about that Pluto problem. But it can be those just huge things. So if those things are kind of in your face a little bit, especially on like the 2nd of July, and then maybe again, like when Venus is doing this, power dynamics, power differentials, power in the equation, intensity, high pressure on July 11th, July 10th, 11th, July 2nd, July 10th, 11th. With Venus coming into this, I'm just going to say this now while we're talking about, I'm just going to kind of treat these as a pair. As Venus moves toward Pluto in this opposition, I mean, this could be a dopamine casino of so many varieties, whether you are into gambling or whether you are into substances or whether you are, I don't know what kind of partying people are doing these days. But the first dopamine casino that I thought of was the one that happens when you fall in love and you're dating or your loins are on fire for someone. And it's like very desire. It's totally like a one-way obsessive ticket to Desire Town when Venus is opposite Pluto. And that's fine. That happens. Our brains are like wired to like hone in on someone and be like, you, at least for a while, and the dopamine, it's a whole thing. We proved it with science. Like, look up Helen Fisher. I won't get into it. But yeah, we got to be on watch for that, I think, especially in July. So if you're out there in the dating land, if you meet someone awesome and it's just like super intense for some reason and you don't really understand why, just sit with it. You know, if they're like, we need to, become exclusive right now and we need to do this and this and that, just chill your buns and have them chill their buns until like August. Wait till Venus gets over here. Wait till like she's a sign away or something, or in Leo at least, and see how they feel when they're past this this Pluto opposition. I'll just tell you. They'll be past that by like 3 degrees as of July 14th. So everyone's on dopamine casino, love bombing, dating notice for the next 2 weeks, for the next 3 weeks. But especially the end of June until July. Uh, it could be. I mean, when you are getting Mercury mixing with Pluto, when I think about Mercury being all of our thinking, like the logic part of our thinking and our rationale and the pattern recognition and labeling that Mercury does, it is super amped up here. So we could get a lot of like, the example of my dad chopping the firewood with the Mars Pluto square. This is like doing that with your brain. It's telekinesis, Kyle. If anyone listens to Tenacious D, yeah, I guess watch out for telekinesis. But I'm thinking more like, yeah, if you have to write a big paper, churning out like that paper you've been putting off, or any kind of big cognitive thing that you need to achieve, anything that requires a lot of thinking or planning, or even like, let's say you have really important discussions, talks, serious ones, heavy ones. Maybe you're dealing with a really complex issue with Mercury opposite Pluto. Pluto is complexity and depth. So maybe, July 1st and 2nd, we're just dealing with some intensity or complexity and trying to talk through that, trying to talk it out. We might be able to have some leverage with that, but I do want to recognize the opposition is of the nature of Saturn. So this just kind of amps up the seriousness potentially, or the sense of maybe unreconcilability, potentially if you've got a few pieces of information or rationale floating around and they're just not quite all settling how you feel like they should. It could be that sense of just deep unreconcilability with something. Long-standing, enduring things, challenges. If you're working on a problem you've been working on for a really long time, could be something like that. Yeah. And then last thing I'll say, a deep ability to do analysis and thinking and all that, investigating, getting to the bottom of it with Pluto there. But also the deep ability to ruminate and obsess. And it's fine to obsess because it can actually come in kind of handy sometimes, if you need to get something done. However, pack snacks, don't forget to eat and, hydrate. When we get rolling with something, sometimes we get too rolling. Now, Venus being here too feels really creative. Just this, we're still having this really nice Venus-Mercury conjunction. And it's like the head of the music department, the head of the art department, the beauty, the words, all of it is together here. So this June into July feels like a really creative time, a really generative time. Now that we've gotten through all of the thinking of Gemini, all the potentials, all the opportunities and things we probably, I can imagine myself. This is the conversation I had with myself last week when everything was at the end of Gemini. And it's in my 5th house of creativity too. So I'm like, all right, I want to make my transit reports that I've been trying to make for like 3 years. I got to finish my research that's just sitting on a shelf staring at me. I've got other things that I need to do. And I have to choose. So I have to prioritize them and then choose the most important one to do first, knowing that then after that, I'm going to choose the second most important thing to do, and so on and so forth. But that's now what we have in Cancer. We can focus in, immerse ourselves in what we've chosen, and actually make some headway with it. And this creative pair here is just working really well with that ability to focus in on something and actually really start to get into tending to it like we would tend to something we're really trying to grow and nurture and support. And so that kind of brings us into Leo, Mercury and Leo, and talking about them in a vacuum. Now that we've talked about them with Pluto, a little digression about Pluto, or a little digression there about Venus, Mercury being very creative together. But we are going to get a bit of sign separation, tropically speaking, starting on the 2nd of July. And very quickly, by the 3rd of July, Mercury is already separating from Pluto. So I would expect once we get to like July 4th and 5th, some of this intense mental stuff is going to be starting to wane. If your brain has just been feeling a little tense for a few days, hopefully we're feeling better by the end of the week. This is Wednesday when Mercury is separating from Pluto. And yeah, they're able to connect at this point with Jupiter. That's very nice and helpful. We're going to have this for a good few weeks. When Mercury is in a sextile with Jupiter, which I did want to talk about that one today. Where was it? I should be working smarter, not harder. It's like the 6th or the 7th. That's when the Mercury Jupiter sextile perfects. So pretty much this whole first week of July, Mercury and Jupiter are very, very closely associated. So, all of that brain power now with Jupiter, who can make sense of all of it. It's like all the processing power and all of the kind of ability to make sense of the data, make a story about it, make it make sense. That is what we get there. We also get goodwill in friendship. We get goodwill around, just in general friendship, but then goodwill and friendship around buying and selling. So it might be, this first week of July might be a nice time to do some deals and things, buy and sell stuff if you need to. Storytelling, creative writing. I should be doing my research. What else? Um, mhm. Oh, yeah. Talking and listening, communicating, learning, teaching, all of that this first week of July. Really good time to take in information. If you're a musician, also super duper great for that because music is ruled by Mercury and they are with this very inspirational, aspirational figure that is Jupiter. Jupiter provides inspiration. Um, it is the coalescing agent of things, of all of the little Mercury bits. And it's in these very diurnal air fire. It's outwardly expressive. So it makes it all the more fun. This isn't just like, sitting internally and writing a song by yourself. This is very much more like sharing that and engaging with people externally about it. So yeah, that's really vibing the whole first week. It begins on the 2nd, really, and perfects on, looks like the 8th of July, Mercury sextile Jupiter. So that's a really nice one this month. Wednesday, the 3rd, I don't think I had anything to add there. Looks like I like the moon with Jupiter on the 3rd. It looks really creative. So July 3rd, moon in Gemini with Jupiter, connecting with Mercury in Leo. So really pinging all of that stuff that we just talked about. Really powerfully creative, and knowing too that we have Pluto piping themselves. They're amplifying all of this and bringing some intensity to it. So powerfully creative, powerfully generative, powerful sharing of ideas, powerful words being exchanged or ideas, or powerful buying and selling. You get the idea. Then on Friday the 5th, we have a Cancer new moon. So let's look at exactly when that is. 5:57 p.m. Central Time, about 6 p.m. Central Time on Friday. I love it because it's on Venus's day on a Friday, and our beautiful laughter-loving queen is right here with them. So that's very nice. We have not Jupiter seeing them. Jupiter, Mercury cannot see this lunation. And then the malefics, Mars and Saturn, which when I say malefic, I'm usually thinking the more extreme energies in the sky versus Jupiter, Venus, more of the temperate energies in the sky. When we're in soft aspect, sextile trine with these more intense energies, it feels really galvanizing to me. It feels like a strength, like kind of an intense thing, but one that strengthens, one that fortifies or helps to really put a strong shape and boundary to something. So whatever is the new beginning, the kind of tidying up and wrapping up of one cycle to get ready for the next, whatever regrouping that you're doing on July 5th, I hope that at least it feels like it's, you're moving in a direction where you're feeling stronger moving forward, or you're feeling more resolved or galvanized. I just really like that word for this. And there's a bit of a malefic lunar enclosure that I wanted to mention, just in so far as it feels like one I kind of don't care about that much in terms of concern, and it actually looks like more of this galvanizing energy. So let me show you that. Like on the 6th, we've got, and this is these times here. This is universal time. So this actually is not central time, but when the moon is, it's really short. So that's the first thing. Like it's less than an hour. So this lunar malefic enclosure on the 6th of July, I don't actually care about because it's so dang short, but also it's like between a trine and a sextile. And some of the ancient authors would say that when a planet is in a soft aspect with a malefic, that malefic either A, isn't able to harm that planet, or B, it's mitigated and it's not able to harm them as much. So, you know, I'm not worried about it. It's totally fine. But very interesting in how soft. It's like the softest malefic enclosure I have seen in a very long time. And it happens after this new moon. So again, once the moon gets to 19 degrees, that's when we're going to see them do that. They'll be between, first they'll hit a trine with Saturn and then a sextile with Mars. And then after that, they'll have a conversation with Venus, which is really nice. So if with this new moon, one way that this could come out is, all right, look at the house topic. So for this Aries rising chart, if you're an Aries rising, this 4th house would be home, parents, family, dwelling, wherever you live, your living situation, ancestry, your parents, 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 parents forever. And those topics, there might be new beginnings. I just like to use that as a keyword for new moons. This is a restart, kind of a refresh button. As you are maybe doing a restart in your private life or with parents or with a home situation, we might be really cognizant of the limitations that might be going on. I might want to be embarking on this thing with my home or my living situation, pursuing something there, but there's certain limitations that I need to abide by, whether or not I want to. And that's, it's kind of a bummeroni, but once we do kind of just be real with what actually is, then we can really get real with what the next step is. And this is a trine. So I think we're going to have a softer, more pliable, more constructive relationship with whatever limitations are here with Saturn, or delays, excuse me, delays, burdens, challenges, responsibilities. And it might even be kind of the galvanizing property of commitment. Maybe there's a commitment that's really important to you that is helping with this. Maybe there's some structure or something about the discipline of Saturn that is part of what is galvanizing the moon moving forward. And then very shortly after that, they'll have this energizing sextile with Mars. So Mars, I mean, they have a good relationship with the moon in general. They're both on the nighttime team. They're very sympathetic to each other. We find them both here in their triplicity in Earth and water, which the moon and Mars both enjoy. And I think, again, this is just a really constructive relationship. So I'm looking at Mars as consistent effort, consistent energy in Taurus, just plodding forward, kind of relentlessly in a way. And that is a resource for the moon. That's going to help the moon out. So when I say galvanizing, that's kind of what I mean. It's like discipline, Saturn, motivation, Mars. Okay, yes, I understand the limitations, but Mars, we're going to keep going anyway. And then they have a nice run in with Venus after that, which is going to be a night, maybe something soft, something comforting, a relationship, a yum yum. I don't know. Hopefully a nice little comfortable thing after being so galvanized. So those are my thoughts. It's the middle decan. The middle decan is the Mars one, I believe, isn't it? No, it's the Mercury one. Yeah, I have nothing to say about that. I'm gonna leave that for other astrologers this time. Um, and I guess this is a good point too, where I should probably discuss the dichotomy or the complementary relationship better yet between Cancer and Capricorn, where we're having these full moons, 2 in a row. And when I think about Cancer and Capricorn together, it's like, what are we growing in Cancer? You know, that I'd mentioned, you know, making those decisions, deciding which of the things to prioritize, what to focus on, what to really put our energy into so that it grows, and kind of tending to it like we would something that needs that care and attention. That's all great. That's what Cancer is good at doing, very nurturing and growthy. But then in Capricorn, we have more of a question of how do we endure? How do we take what we're growing and have it last, have it keep going for a really long time, maybe even past this person's like physical mortal life of Cancer. So whatever we are really focusing on growing, what is the long-term plan here? Does this fit into a longer-term game? Now, this depends on who you are. You might not be someone like some of us are like 10-year plan people. Some of us are 2-year plan people. Some of us don't know what's happening next week. It depends on your circumstances as well. The more privilege you have, the more you can choose whether you can be I can just not worry about what's going to happen 6 weeks from now. Some people have to only be on that short time frame because they're in really like tumultuous situations where they're moving around everywhere. So, you know, whatever your long game is, that might look very different depending on your situation. But whatever long game means for you, maybe that's 6 months from now. Maybe that is 10 years from now. But whatever we're growing and focusing on and tending to and nurturing, how does that fit into the bigger plan there, chronologically speaking, or the grander scheme of things? So, and sustainability, that's the other point too, is that, you know, sometimes we can do a period of growth, but the way that we do it is not sustainable over the long term. And so looking to like, have we really reached kind of a limit with how reasonable this growth is? Is this growth sustainable? Is the way that we're doing this sustainable? Am I going to feel okay doing this in a year? You know, the way that I'm doing it now? All kind of good questions to ask under the not only the 2 Capricorn full moons, but then this Cancer new moon. That's all I have for that. And then again on the 6th and the 7th, then we're getting that Mercury Jupiter sextile action happening. I mean, I would say the 5th and the 6th when the moon is in Cancer, those look pretty nice. The moon is going to be with, you know, there's kind of some intensity after this new moon. It's like there's something galvanizing, there's something a little sweet in between. And then the moon has their opposition with Pluto and meets Mercury and puts maybe even more words to what's going on and even more information. So I think we're just going to be feeling a lot of that same kind of intensity, impact, high pressure situations, or just like stuff that's important to us. Because I think that's usually when we feel those things. And then Yeah, by the 8th, the moon is moving away from that stuff and into and into a square with Mars. So yeah, maybe there's some intensity is going to continue here on the 8th, it looks like. Tuesday. Let's talk about, yeah, I'm going to talk about like the 8th, 9th, and 10th. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as a little chunk of days. And before I do, I'm going to check in with the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything that's important. Someone has a Mars, Uranus, and Pluto conjunction all together. So yeah, like that's usually someone that is can be very flexible. Chicken or egg. I don't know if you become adaptable because you have to deal with that amount of like maybe turmoil or change, or if you're just comfortable with that. I don't know. Maybe it's both. Yeah, dopamine casinos, man, watch out. Oh my gosh. This is so funny. Um, well, I guess this shows you how much of a patriot I am. I completely forgot that it was a holiday in my country. I don't know. I don't even, I'm gonna let my politics get in here for just a second. I'm low on blood sugar, so who knows what I'm gonna say. But I don't really like it's hard because I appreciate veterans. I just want to say that. I appreciate veterans. I know they died for my freedom. Thank you very much. Much gratitude. I don't like this country right now and a lot of things that it does. And, you know, kill me if I don't feel like celebrating our birthday. I've had years in my life where I don't even feel like celebrating my own birthday. Hashtag sun in the 12th house. So, maybe I don't feel like celebrating the birthday of this country right now. Or, I don't know. So that's all I'm gonna say. So I totally forgot about the 4th of July. What the heck is going on the 4th of July? We got the moon. Oh, that's one of those nicer days with I don't mind this. Moon is with Jupiter on July 4th, for the most of it. Here, let me get the hour proper. Yeah, till the afternoon. Then the moon does go into Cancer. So I guess something to know for that holiday too. When the moon is waning, my notes for July 3rd and 4th were to be wrapping up things. And so if you are, say, having a gathering or a party, my brother actually is doing a trip. So if you're like getting ready for stuff over this lunation cycle, then it would make sense that we would be finishing up whatever busyness that we've been doing to get ready for the 4th of July over here. So that would really reflect a waning moon, kind of the wrapping up of loose ends around something that you've been doing for the last 4 weeks. But it can also be kind of a lower energy time. Now, I don't know how I mean, I think when the moon is in Gemini, so like for the morning and the early afternoonish times, maybe a bit more energetic earlier in the day. Once this moon gets into Cancer, I think everyone's probably just going to be eating a lot at that point. Like it's just major food holiday, I think, for a lot of us, but a little less energy. So if people like aren't like super party mode, yeah, that could be why, you know. And this whole time too, the moon is getting a little bit of a square from Saturn. So there is a bit of maybe that's me. Maybe I'm Saturn being like, womp womp, my politics, blah, blah. But yeah, like, I don't know. There's something kind of overcoming it in more of a limiting, constraining fashion. It's like, oh, I would love to, as they say on The Simpsons, show the love of your country by blowing up a small piece of it with your fireworks or whatever. But maybe, the sheriff in town is a dick or something. Um, that's a small town thing. It's like I feel like we get a new sheriff in my hometown like once every 5 years. And so we go through these cycles of like having a sheriff that doesn't let us do fireworks and one that does let us do fireworks. Anyway, there's some dampening kind of factor here, but I don't think that that's a bad thing or a problem. But Just my main point for the 4th of July is more vibrant earlier in the day. Later in the day, if people are tired, don't take it personally. It's not your potato salad. The moon is just really waning and very, very dark. Thanks for reminding me. I totally forgot about that. Okay. Yeah, and fireworks, that's a whole thing too. That's a whole conversation. Um, Now they have the drones, which is really interesting. Now they've got, instead of like a fireworks thing, now there's like the drone show thing, which is, I mean, it is kind of mind blowing. I've seen a few of them, but on the pro con list, if we're doing pro con list for everything, the pro of the drone show would definitely be that we don't have to do fireworks because there's too many veterans and dogs that don't do well with them. Um, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love the word bummeroni. Please feel free to use it. Um, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And I do like to, it's so good that we do talk about, and this is where I need to expand my own knowledge of the world and when all the most important holidays are, because when there are holidays in a region, there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. And so it is good to know what the weather is when everyone's being really active. Um, mm. Man, I gotta say, I'm looking at a purple finch right now, ADHD moment. I think the birds are getting like more beautiful. They must eat like all the better foods and then their colors must get better. Um, okay, I digress. Let's talk about the 8th, ninth, and 10th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Um, mm, okay, so we've got Monday, July 8th. This is the day where Moon is going to move into Virgo, and they're going to be doing their monthly opposition with Saturn on the 8th and the 9th. And I said this, I'm getting more and more positive as I watch the moon do this opposition every month, because what I've been noticing is it's just a really good time to get down to the details about the processes in our lives, kind of do the house cleaning, do your digital house cleaning, but like long-standing challenges. If Saturn is these long-standing issues or challenges, then when the moon is in Virgo, it can actually be a really fruitful time of working with those things. Um, so I have been noticing that. That's what we're going to have on the 8th and the 9th. So really constructive days, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. I think they are a little bit more, um, maybe a little slower in pace, just because we're going to have the moon entering into a nocturnal sign opposite Saturn. But we're getting this really energizing trine from Mars Uranus, those agents of change. And so as the moon gets to the end of Virgo here, it's going to complete this opposition with Saturn. And then it's going to hit this sextile. And I kind of wonder if it's like saying that by the time we get to Wednesday, Thursday, then there's going to be a breakthrough, an insight, a sudden like push of progress forward. It could be like a sudden helpful separation, a sudden helpful, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna clean out the fridge and get rid of all this shit. Like that's actually what I should do with this. Um, yes, that's actually a really good idea. I should write that down somewhere. Oh, good. I'll get it in the timestamps later. So yeah, really constructive few days on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8th, 9th, 10th. But know if you have some barrier, challenge, or obstacle or something beforehand, like on Monday, Tuesday, I expect by Wednesday, Thursday, things will be moving forward a little bit better. Um, yes. Is there anything else I want to say about that? And then we have Venus really closing in on this Pluto opposition. So, okay, we have our few like early in the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, very practical, constructive days, good days to work through, or yeah, good days, a good week to work through longstanding issues and maybe have some breakthroughs. Um, and maybe accepting that, maybe some of the actions that need to be done are maybe more disruptive than we would have liked. That can be, I wonder if Saturn's kind of like being like, hey, look at what's really here. And yes, this is really what we need to do. So that could be the vibe or the tone. Oh yeah, and then Venus. Venus opposite Pluto, dating alert, dopamine casinos. If they're very nice, that's okay. I don't want to make you paranoid. They might be just fine, but just take it a little slow. The kind of like the more intense things go, the more we got to just be looking at our noggin. And it's also very maybe deep satisfaction, intense pleasure, impactful pleasure. If you are in an adult consensual relationship, this could be a cool few days, So just throwing that out there, under the right circumstances, mixing intensity or power with love, romance, pleasure does not have to be a bad thing. But yeah, we do have to be on guard, oppositions of the nature of Saturn. Are there some delays, barriers to love, delays or barriers? Is this person really showing me who they are? Is there some obfuscation or ignorance lingering here with this person? So if they're still getting to know them, that might be a good idea to wait then. Um, and then on the other hand, so just to validate if this is your situation, thinking about Venus opposite Pluto and long-standing, deeply entrenched barriers to love, relationship, pleasure, those types of things. So if that is going on, I am sorry. And then just know that it'll probably feel a little less intense, a little less in your face by like July 13th, but it's probably going to be pretty strong. So, and then too, if we're ruminating, beginning of July, mid-July, if there's a lot of rumination or just the mind is really hooked by something, like notice if your mind's gotten hooked or like you're really clinging to an idea or an idea just keeps clinging to you. Either way, just be aware of it because this is kind of Pluto can be that energy to stick with something in a really focused way, but it can be a stickiness that is not always pleasant. So that, keep your wits about you on the 11th and the 12th. And then on the 13th, things should start to wane in intensity. And then I would say by the 15th, Venus is now 3 degrees away from Pluto. So yeah. So then last part of July, get to know whoever that was a little bit more. And then by August, we should be definitely in the clear. We do have a little benefic enclosure. Let me go back here. And this is on the 12th of July, when the moon is pretty much right when they get into Libra, 0 degrees, 33 arc minutes to 10 degrees of Libra, 44 arc minutes. It's for 20 hours. It's a benefic enclosure of the moon between a sextile with Venus and a trine with Jupiter. And part of the reason I wanted to just be lazy and show you it this way, I thought, well, I can do that thing where I just teach people how to fish. And, this can be kind of intimidating when you're looking at it for the first time, pulling up. It's the Lunation search engine, benefic, enclosure, malefic, besiegement is just a word for a malefic enclosure. But yeah, it can be kind of intimidating to see this big old list. But yeah, this is pretty much how you read it, is the moon is going to be at these degrees, between these degrees, 0 and 10. So yeah, let's go look at it on the circle chart. On the 12th, so pretty much as soon as the moon gets into Libra here, and then this whole little stretch, and they're going to be between Venus and Jupiter. Wow, that was really bad. A trine and the sextile. And those are like the best ones. An overcoming trine from Jupiter and an overcoming sextile from Venus. Those are conditions of bonification. So really, not only is this a lunar benefic enclosure, another name for that, another term for that is a condition of bonification. And that is putting a planet in a really nice condition. Now, I know the moon is with the south node. Do whatever you do with that. But then know as well that, I expect July 12th and 13th to, it's kind of interesting because we do have Mars and Uranus here, and they are doing things, and that is real. And at the same time, the moon is able to, the moon is not seeing Mars and Uranus that clearly. Yeah, it's like there is that stuff going on, but the moon is able to enjoy themselves in some other way on the 12th and the 13th. So I don't think Mars and Uranus is going to ruin that whole, Friday, Saturday at all. Yeah, the moon is just in too good of shape with these bonifications for me to not say that the 12th I expect to be a reasonable day. But okay, we do have this intensity here with Mars getting 3 degrees away from Uranus, and 3 degrees is called within an engagement. And that was seen as when a conjunction was going to get the most intense. So really on the 13th, the 14th, and then, I would say the 13th through the 21st. So Mars-Uranus conjunction, mid-July, more specifically July 13th to July 21st. And what are we watching for? So again, going back to what I was talking about earlier in the hour about neutral ways that we can talk about Mars and Uranus together, just that effort and action and in a sudden, maybe unexpected or new novel way. But then also Mars just ruling a place. So for this theoretical Cancer rising chart, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. And that is this person's 10th and 5th. And so maybe Mars with Uranus would be a sudden, unexpected, like insight around their career or a sudden breakthrough around their career, where it's like sudden forward momentum or breaking away from a challenge or something. It could be cool like that. Or with creativity, the 5th house of creative expression, unexpected creative expression in the place of group expression. This could be a flash mob. This could definitely be a flash mob. So, we could think of ways where we can have sudden effort or energy. I think a lot of times it's just like something gets interrupted and we got to go do a thing that we didn't expect to do. It's that last minute task that you thought was going to be last minute, but it's not. Like you were going to take out the garbage, but it like drips and you got to clean it up and it's gross. And now I'm late for work. It's like sudden effort that I have to put in all of a sudden. So there's a lot of small things that can happen with this. But just know we're really coming into it. We have some nice weather with the moon. That's cool on the 12th, but we also have this note of it's kind of volatility potentially over there at worst. So let me see what else I had for this last. I should talk more about Mercury and Venus being in Leo and that change. Yeah, maybe that's where I will kind of end things out. So very different, of course, being in Leo versus being in Cancer. Um, Cancer is a nocturnal water sign. It's more inward, it's more responsive. And I love, these two talking about these two together because we literally have the places ruled by the sun who emits light and the moon, their domicile is Cancer. The moon reflects light. They take in that light from the sun and then we see the moon lit up, but really that's the sun's light that's on the moon that we're seeing. So there's reflection, responsiveness. And that really goes for the responsiveness of what is emitted onto it. That really helps to define, in my mind, the symbolism of diurnal and nocturnal signs, masculine, feminine, but really, what is influencing things around it, emitting light like the sun does, and what is more reflecting that, being responsive to that, like the moon and nocturnal signs. So that's very different natures there, different pacing. Nocturnal signs are a bit slower. Diurnal signs are a bit faster. So, let's just say July 2nd, when Mercury gets into Leo, maybe the pacing of our communication speeds up, or the pacing of our minds. And then once Venus gets in there, and she's in there, I missed that. I missed saying that. on the 11th is the exact day that Venus gets into Leo. And Venus and Leo, I mean, we go from water, okay, so slower pace with community or with connection, maybe a slower, more careful pace with romance. And now once we get to July 11th, now it's fire, action oriented. I like it. I prefer it. It's beautiful. I want it. And I'm going to act on it. I'm going to go do it. Very fire. They want to engage. They want to be involved with whatever is going on. So we might even feel more social after July 11th. We might feel like more easeful in our coming together with people. If we look at Venus as, you know, and they're invisible at this point. They're not really coming into view until later in July. It's like much later. No, it's in like August. Oh, yeah, it is like the end of July. Venus is going to become visible. First, it's Mercury. They become visible. Then Venus. But where it stands on the 12th, Venus is still pretty quiet. She's an evening star. So, you know, let's take that fire and dial it down just a little bit. But still external, diurnal, doing stuff a little bit more loud, a little bit more sociable than in more of a, I guess, impromptu way than more Cancer, careful, private, more deliberate with how they socialize usually, which is great. It's fine. Um, Warrior goddess. I mean, goddess of love, goddess of war. What I've been noticing is that when Venus is in Leo, which I mean, Leo, it is a place of acting on your will. It's like, this is what my will says and wants about relationships, or Venus is our values. So, you know, maybe in Cancer, Venus is like, this is what I value. And I am, you know, I'm literally nurturing something based on my values. Uh, in fire, our values are what we're acting on. I'm not just keeping to myself about it. It's going to be very apparent what my values are. I'm going to state what they are. I'm going to embody them with my whole being. So we can get kind of spicy and fiery in the name of justice, in the name of fairness. So Venus in Leo is super fun and playful, very charming, very just kind of powerful bombshell like Tannerel. I gotta look up Tannerel's chart. They're an amazing musician, but total smoke show bombshell. That is how I feel about Venus and Leo. So can be super, super sexy in that way. But sometimes I see it as like the war goddess is here and they are ready to war about it. And then there are words with it. So this could be fun, sexy, flirty, spicy. All of that is looking pretty, pretty neat. Just, you know, make sure you're careful where you point that thing. You know, it's like, I always use this this as a metaphor, but it's like, is Scott Summers or whatever, the guy from X-Men who like has the laser eyes, but he's got like special sunglasses. He doesn't just take them off in the grocery store, you know, so his laser eyes are getting all over everything. So yeah, be careful where you point that thing around July 3rd, 12th, 13th, 14th, especially with Mars moving into Uranus. But I'm looking forward to Venus in a fire sign. It's usually pretty fun. And is there anything else I need to say about that? I feel like there was one other thing with the moon was going to ping something. I think it was this. I think it was the 16th, which we're going to meet again on the 12th. So we'll be talking about this stuff again, but just for planning purposes, in case you're trying to plan into the end of the month here. I am a bit curious about Warrior Queen up here when we've got Mars really locking in with these fixed signs. So on the 16th of July, we're going to have the moon really tying in with this Mars-Uranus conjunction that had just perfected. So very powerful breakthrough energy, but very disruptive potentially. And then Venus and Mercury putting words to it, and potentially it's relational, or it's, we're really feeling deeply a disruption. And, what is Mercury saying about it? How is Venus expressing that in relationship? So we may need in the middle of July here to, I guess, do whatever we can to make sure it's healthy conflict versus, just steamrolling and laying waste to the lands and salting the earth. So we'll see. This just looks like spicy weather. I guess, if you're, whatever circumstances you're in, if there are potential dangers or threats, just kind of keep your head on a swivel on that Monday, Tuesday, on the 15th and 16th of July. But on a positive note, this could be just really deeply expressive, very creative energy. When I see Mars and Moon and they're kind of seeing each other and able to have a conversation, this is just very generative, powerful force in Scorpio and Taurus. Scorpio and Taurus is like that volcanic force of nature. And it often is kind of compressed and limited in that fixed sign way, or kind of in that nocturnal way put inward. And so maybe on the 15th, 16th, okay, being aware of our surroundings, being aware of our internal landscapes and how they are going, having ways to express so that if we feel like a volcano, we have a safe way to boil over, and we're not just squashing down our feelings with the squasher downer. So we got to be watching out for the squasher downer on the 15th and 16th. But it could be very powerfully creative. It's like really putting art and words to powerful feelings or emotions. So if you're an artist or an activist or someone who's a writer, or, this can be really powerful, just expressive content. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you for this 2 weeks. I'm going to check in with the chat last call if there's any transits that I didn't touch that you wanted to look at. Sorry. Thank you. I was just saying, that's all I have. I don't have any announcements. If you have any questions and you didn't, or you did, we're not here for the live and you're listening to this later, put your questions or comments below. It takes me about 2 weeks to get to those comments. Usually I'm finding, like, I'm trying to keep up with it, but I am finding I'm not as on the ball as I would like to be. So please be patient. But I do try to keep an eye on all of the comments that come in after the fact. I do get timestamps up on this. Give me a couple days for that. And again, my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. That's where you can find my bookings. You can find all my services, all my writings. And if I do horoscopes, that's where they end up. I do a newsletter. Newsletter sign up is on the website as well. That's where I'm usually once a month giving all my events, all of my discounts in there. So sign up for that. And I guess the next thing is going to be July part 2. And that I have scheduled for the 12th at 7 p.m. Same bat place, same bat channel. That's going to be on Friday. And the day before, actually, July 11th, I will be doing my monthly question and response session. So we'll be doing the Q&A on the 11th, next forecast on the 12th, and Hellenistic Book Club on the 13th to do Chris Brennan's book. So if you're in the Hellenistic Astrology course with Chris Brennan, we are going to be in chapter 7 for a while. We're really getting in the meat of looking at planets and what makes up their condition. So if you're in that course, feel free to join anytime. We're going to be doing this for a long time, I think. Make sure there's any final questions. It does not look like there is. Thank you again, everyone, and have a safe solstice season. And I guess I'll see you next time.